Hello there. Thank you very much once again for joining us. This is Mary Angela Moore, your host for Crazy Talks with Wise People. With me here is another wise woman. She's actually the coolest woman I ever had met. No exaggeration. She's really cool. And you'll find out later. She's Sarah Wilkinson. She's a lecturer in psychology at the University of Highlands and Islands here in Thurso, Scotland. She's also training to be a humanist celebrant. You'll find out more about her and you'll know why she's very cool. Now let's welcome her and she's going to tell us more about herself. Sarah?
Thanks, Angela. I'm not sure I can live up to that wonderful introduction, but thank you.
You can. I'm sure you can. Peanuts. All right.
Yeah, I've met Angela recently. She's staying next door to where I live. I've lived here in Caithness for nearly 20 years. And as Angela said, I'm a lecturer in psychology for UHI and I'm training to be a humanist celebrant. I have 2 teenage daughters and 2 dogs, which I love walking in this beautiful beaches and countryside that we have around here. So what would you like to know?
Okay, so aside from lecturing in the university, do you also do coaching or you also run seminars and webinars to some individuals?
I've done some mental health awareness courses for community groups and local teachers. People who are working in the community or working with young people, just kind of raising awareness of mental health issues and just trying to enable people to help support others. So I have done some of that as well. Yeah.
Okay. And what is your favorite topic surrounding mental health?
I'm particularly interested in the idea of resilience.
Resilience.
Yeah, so kind of like the idea of people overcoming adversity and kind of using that to become stronger. So helping people out of the situation they're in, helping them to improve their lives, but to then use that as well to kind of build on. So building that resilience so that people can be a little bit more stronger going forward in their lives and giving them kind of strategies, ways to deal with situations that they might then encounter.
Well, I'm sure that a lot of our viewers right now would like to know more about how to become resilient in this life that we're living right now in the 21st century.
I think the main thing is, you know, if you're suffering with a really, really serious, difficult mental health issue, it can be really hard to get yourself out of that place that you're in. So quite often people will need maybe sort of medical intervention or medical support, but the kind of things I'm talking about are once somebody's in a place where they're then able to build on that, things like mindfulness, kind of self-awareness, giving them different coping strategies as well. There's quite a lot of, sort of simple things that people do to just kind of stop maybe negative thought cycles, to try and think about themselves and think about the world differently.
Okay, well, I'm interested in you expounding more on, or expanding more rather, on how to think positively about themselves.
Yeah, I think it can be tricky, especially if you have developed over a long period of time sort of negative habits of thinking. And it almost becomes like everything that's habitual. That's the easiest route to go down, and our brains kind of get hardwired into that way of thinking. So we almost have to retrain our brains and create different neural pathways. If you imagine an overgrown field, and your brain can be sort of like an overgrown field, and as you're developing and growing and getting older, the pathways that you use more become more trodden down, so they're the easiest pathways to go down. So if you are constantly encountering challenging or difficult situations and you think about and handle them in a particular way, that's the pathways that become the common ones. So people get stuck maybe in these sort of negative pathways of thinking. So you have to sort of retrain the brain to think differently and make those more positive kind of neural pathways the trodden down ones, the ones that you use that become the default. So yeah, cognitive behavioral therapy is the kind of idea here. That's sort of the basis of that kind of thing. But you don't necessarily have to sort of go through a lengthy sort of serious cognitive behavioral therapy. People can use things in their everyday life to stop negative thoughts, to become aware of what it is that you're thinking, maybe how you're dealing with a situation, how you're thinking about something, and to stop and to kind of reassess and retrain and think about something in a different way, in a more positive way. Yeah.
So, Sarah, I understand what you're saying, but how can they rewire their brains?
It takes time. It does take time, and as I say, you have to kind of create new habits for your brain almost. So it's like retraining your brain, and it is a matter of using strategies and positive sort of coping strategies, and using these techniques all the time to sort of, as I say, retrain your brain into those new ways of thinking. And it can be hard when things are so ingrained and you're so used to thinking a certain way. But yeah, things like there's a really interesting program called Decider Skills, and it's used quite a lot with young people, not just young people, but it's really useful for using with children and young people. And they have some really simple kind of things. For example, the stop kind of thing, where you first thing is to become aware of your triggers, as it were, and they say feel the fizz. So if something's making you angry or upset or kind of stressed, it's to recognize that and to stop and draw back, almost like that kind of helicopter view. So you kind of assess what's actually going on, what the reality of the situation is. So you're kind of thinking about it more objectively, as opposed to emotionally and instinctively. And then you can, as I say, use different strategies to kind of deal with that. One thing is just a simple thing like the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique.
What is the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1?
It's a classic kind of mindfulness, to come to a mindfulness technique. I do it myself sometimes when I'm quite stressed, if I'm outside with the dogs, you can do it anywhere. So you stop, you're aware, you relax yourself, roll your shoulders back, kind of take a breath, and you just think, okay, so 5 things that I can hear right now. So for example, I can hear the birds outside the window, I can hear the fan, the cooker, I can hear you kind of responding. So you just sort of run through 5 things, and it sort of grounds you.
That's 5. Okay.
And then 4, it doesn't have to be that many, but and then kind of maybe 4 things that you can see.
4 things that we can see. Okay.
So then you're like, oh, okay, well, I can see my glass of water on the table there. I can see my hands in front of me, and so on and so on. And then it's using your senses. So then it might be like 3 things that you can smell, 2 things that you can feel, and 1 thing that you can taste.
The 3.
So you're kind of working down, and it's basically just, as I say, taking it out of yourself slightly, grounding yourself, becoming aware of your surroundings. And what's happened then is you've stopped that cycle maybe that you were in, that kind of negative thoughts, the overwhelming feelings that you were having. And then, as I say, you can sort of work on things and maybe use some different strategies. There's things like opposite emotion. So if you're feeling angry, you try to kind of think, okay, well, what's the opposite of that? Well, that would be peace and calm. So, okay, I'm going to kind of try to take that negative emotion and flip it. And kind of feel
flipping.
The flip side of it. Yeah, kind of feel the
flipping.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but yeah, there's lots of kind of really simple, as I say, you can even teach them to children, and they use visuals, kind of sort of really interesting kind of little visuals and cartoon type things, so that children can help to learn these sort of techniques. Yeah, just
wow,
little ideas.
Okay, well, I'm learning. Wow. I think that's easy.
It's not easy to start off with, and it's also not easy to keep practicing techniques for negative thinking and for sort of stopping these things. But it does become easier, like everything. It becomes easier the more you do it. Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay. Well, I think we can all do that, right? It's easy. Mhm.
Yeah.
Do you have more techniques?
I'm just kind of trying to think. Oh yes, one good thing, and the way that you do this with children to sort of explain to them is if you think about a situation that you're in and it feels overwhelming and you feel like you can't cope with the situation and it's never going to end. It's becoming aware of the fact that this too will pass, as they say. So if you think about the idea of a tunnel, and you can demonstrate this to children by using, for example, like a cardboard kitchen roll tube or something like that. You get a little model car, like a little toy car, and you put it in at one end and you say, well, okay, it can't turn round, it can't go back, it has to keep going, but it will come out the other end. And you sort of, move the thing, the car comes out the other end, you say, there you go, it's come out the other end. And it's like that with situations in your life. You have to think, okay, I can't turn the clock back, I can't go back, this is how things are now, but it will pass. I can move forward and I can come through the other side of it, and this way that I'm feeling at the moment, this particular situation will end, it will pass, and I will see the light at the end of the tunnel and I will come through it. So yeah,
It's simple, but I think it needs discipline.
yes, absolutely. Like with everything, you kind of need to put the work in. Yeah.
Okay, so you also had mentioned during our pre-interview, oh, thank you, I really enjoyed our fellowship. We had fellowship yesterday and we had fellowship today too. We had pre-interview bonding, so to speak, and so I'm able to comfortably relate with her. Well, she's very relatable, as you can see. Okay, she's a very cool person, as you can see. Well, yesterday during our pre-interview, she also had mentioned that she, among all the courses that she teaches, she loves developmental psychology. So, well, for some of our audience here who may not yet know about what developmental psychology is, will you please tell us briefly about what it is?
Yeah, it's just thinking about how we grow and develop through our lifespan. It's kind of like the idea of lifespan development. When I'm teaching developmental psychology, it's really teaching students about different theories about how we develop. So it might be to do with how we develop cognitively, how we learn. It might be about our personalities and kind of how they develop as well from birth through life. And a lot about the idea of nature versus nurture as well. So the idea of how much is kind of biologically predetermined and through our genes and inheritance, and how much is to do with nurture and kind of our environment, our socialization and our upbringing. So we look at kind of different theories around that and different stages of the lifespan as well, and the different kind of aspects that are involved at different stages during life, from birth right through to sort of older age and end of life. Yeah.
Okay, Sarah, what's this? I'm so sorry. Okay. All right. So what is it that really influences our development? Is it more of nurture or nature?
Well, that's the kind of age-old debate, Angela, and there's still not one kind of answer to that. It sounds like a bit of a cop-out, but they do say, the kind of prevailing sort of approach in psychology now is that it's almost 50-50. So say, for example, if you take personality as an example, that actually some of that does come from a predisposition. So, you're born with certain kind of genetic blueprint, as it were, and you might be predisposed to have, for example, a particular temperament. And so that's your kind of default right from a baby. And they actually talk about babies and different temperaments in babies. So, you might, any of you've got children yourself will know that some babies are what you might call easy babies. Very relaxed, very laid back, they don't cry much, they're not very demanding, they respond to people. So when you kind of smile, then they'll smile back, and they kind of and those kind of babies, interestingly then, so that's the kind of genetic temperament, okay? But the way then that people interact with that baby will be very different, possibly, from a baby with a more difficult temperament. So a baby that's kind of maybe more resistant to being cuddled or held, one that cries a lot, kind of is not easily consoled or easily settled. And also some babies don't like interaction. They don't want that kind of social, you know, they might not respond, they might not smile back, they might not like it if somebody tries to pick them up and cuddle them. So that, you see, that's the sort of genetic temperament that then can influence the way that people act towards that baby, and that can then kind of either reinforce that temperament, or depending on the parenting and the socialization, can kind of almost challenge it and overcome it and change that. So it's this mix of kind of maybe how you're born, but then also how people interact with you and interact with that. It's really, yeah, interesting idea.
Okay, so based on your studies, it's actually 50-50.
Yeah, that's kind of what they say now. They use twin studies quite a lot. They look at twins that have been separated at birth and kind of reared separately, to try and sort of tease out how much is nature and how much is nurture. And you know, they kind of, when they're looking at that and they're doing sort of psychological tests with separated twins as teenagers or as adults, they find that there certainly are similarities between them, even if they've been raised separately, in things like intelligence, personality, physical kind of skills, but that doesn't account for everything, because there are differences as well. So that part of it comes from the nurture, the environment, maybe the different environments they were brought up in, the different parenting, the schools, the friendships they make. So yeah, kind of half and half.
All right. So what advice can you give to the parents who are watching us right now? How is there an ideal way to bring up children?
I think when we kind of think about parenting and sort of child rearing and child development, I think the main thing to recognize is that every single child is an individual, and you can't necessarily treat them the same, or kind of try to make, say you've got two children and maybe they have got different temperaments, so they're quite different. You need to recognize that uniqueness of that child and respond to what's best for them in a positive, supportive, caring way. That's the main thing, is to kind of not try and turn somebody into something they're not to try and enforce something that maybe you think they should be, or they should be more like their sister or their brother, because they're not, they're their own person. So it's about nurturing the person that they are, and kind of but in a warm kind of way. And you know, to be honest, being warm, being loving, being responsive is really the key to good parenting. That's, you know, that's what kind of child psychologists would say. Yeah.
So have you experimented in this approach to your two children, your two daughters?
Well, they are very different. I mean, we've talked about this before. They're very different. One's 18, one's nearly 17. And they were different right from birth. They're classic examples of those different temperaments in babies. And you know, my older daughter was more challenging as a baby, and I think as a first-time parent, with, you know, no kind of experience of having had a child before, I did maybe think that I had to do things in a certain way, and try and had to maybe, you know, get her to bed at a certain time, or feed her every 3 hours, or, you know, sort of do things the right way. But actually I realized, you know, by the time I had my second child, I realized that's not maybe the way to do things. And as I say, just responding to them with their differences and the way they are. And it's the same when they're teenagers as well, you know, going through teenage years. And you can't necessarily approach situations and challenges and in the same way with both of them. So yeah, just thinking of them as individuals, of what they're trying to maybe think of, how things are for them and what they're experiencing, as opposed to just from my point of view, maybe try and think about it from their point of view as well. Yeah, and just sort of reach a balance maybe with them of advice and what I think is best for them, but also taking on board their opinions and attitudes and feelings. So it's not easy though, is it? Parenting is not easy, but we muddle through.
Yes,
we do our
right.
best. Yeah.
Yes, it's true. Okay, so you've been teaching in the university, and so you do have a heterogeneous class. So how do you apply this to a class of how many students?
It depends. Sometimes, I mean, you know, sometimes we can kind of teach small face-to-face classes with maybe 6, 7 students in. Sometimes, particularly if I'm teaching online, I've taught up to kind of 60, 70 students at a time online. So that's a completely different thing. I think when you're teaching face to face with groups, it's good when we get a mixed group of ages. Sometimes we get mature students in a group, and that gives a really different dynamic to the kind of feeling of the student group. And people learn in different ways. People have different agendas, different kind of reasons for coming to study. Some people take it more seriously, some people are more committed, but I do like having mature students in a group. They're not, maybe sometimes not as confident in themselves and their abilities and their studies, but can bring something really positive to a group, a nice kind of ethos, and sometimes lifts up the younger ones and helps them to get more focused. That's kind of nice.
Okay, so how challenging it could really get to be teaching online with a heterogeneous group, and what approaches do you apply so that you'd be able to deal with them, and so you'll be able to be more effective as a professor?
Yeah, it really kind of came apparent during lockdown. I mean, UHI, University of Highlands and Islands, does quite a few online courses. A lot of their degrees are online, so we're kind of used to teaching degree level students online. That's something that, you know, if they study with UHI, a lot of them choose that mode of study. But what we actually had to do was start teaching our college students that below degree level online as well during lockdown. Now, we were lucky that we had our virtual learning platform already there for our degree students and already set up. So we then started using that for our further education students, different groups. But it was challenging because they found it difficult. I found it difficult in a way. The way that I would do things before, maybe in the classroom, you can't do. So you have to be careful you don't do death by PowerPoint. So, you know, just putting a PowerPoint slide up and just kind of flicking through that and talking over it, because they lose focus, lose concentration. So we use things like breakout rooms. So the breakout room facility where you can allocate people either randomly, or if you know your student group, you can kind of maybe think, I'll put one mature student in with 5 younger students and get them to discuss things in small breakout rooms online, virtually, and then come back together as a big group and maybe discuss what they found, that kind of thing. We use things like discussion boards as well, where we got them to post on discussion boards, so they can read each other's posts, respond to them. So you would set a question or a topic or a task, and they would contribute to the discussion board. So it was just about finding different ways of learning, really, learning and teaching. Yes, it was interesting, challenging. Worked for some students loved it, but some students did find it quite challenging, I think, and some teachers and lecturers as well.
Yeah, so I think your background on psychology really helped you a lot in terms of classroom management.
Yes, I think I was quite lucky, Angela, in that respect. We had lectures and things like engineering, maybe construction, you know, you can imagine hair and beauty, you know, you can imagine how difficult it was for them trying to go to virtual learning. They did it. They did things like videos, you know, video demonstrations, getting the students to do things themselves, little practical things, and video themselves or whatever. So but yeah, I think it was a bit easier for me in some ways. One, because I've done online teaching before, but also, like you say, my maybe awareness of different learning styles and different kind of group dynamics and things helped perhaps give me a little bit of an advantage. So yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing with us the psychology aspect of you.
You're welcome.
All right, now I'm very much interested about the other aspect of you, which is humanism. She actually is, like what I've mentioned, she's training to be a humanist celebrant. What is, first of all, I'd like to know more about what is humanism. Is it a religion? Is it a sect? Is it a cult? What is it, please?
Humanism is a kind of ethos, a philosophy almost of life. And the basic principles of humanism is that you believe we have one life. So we don't believe in an afterlife, and we don't kind of believe that you're living your life so that you can go to heaven, or, you know, that so that something good happens to you afterwards. This is your life. and you make the most of the life that you have. So it's about living a good life yourself and trying to live the best life you can yourself, but also maybe being aware that your actions have reactions and consequences. So thinking about what you do in life and how that affects others as well, and being non-judgmental and allowing others to be able to live the life they want to live and to make their own choices. Whereas with like some belief systems, it's kind of this is what you should do and this is how it should be. With humanism, it's completely not like that. It's like, okay, you are free to live your life the way you want to live it. However, be aware that your choices do have consequences, and you know, don't believe in, we're not saying, oh well, if you live the kind of life where you're hurting other people all the time, that's a good thing. You wouldn't kind of encourage that, but you would say to somebody, you would try to maybe make them aware of the consequences that their actions are having. And you know, so yeah, it's a very positive, open-minded, non-judgmental kind of approach to life, really, Angela. That's the way
well,
it is.
is it the reason why you're very cool? Like from the very first time I met you down to yesterday and today, I really hadn't experienced anything like negative. I hadn't seen any negative aura in you. You're very accepting of people. You're non-judgmental. Is it because of the doctrines you've learned from humanism?
I think it's more kind of the other way around. I think I've tried to live that kind of life. Maybe that's, yeah, maybe it's just the way I was or tried to be, for whatever reason. I don't know. I just find that's the way I want to live my life and the kind of person I try to be. And then I became aware of humanism, and realized that actually that's kind of fits with what I think anyway, and how I try to live my life. So yeah.
Oh, all right, very interesting. You said like you are non-judgmental. How do you approach? I mean, what is your idea about euthanasia, abortion, and the like?
Well, those are actually issues that some humanist societies campaign around. So, for example, at some abortion clinics, the people protest. They kind of form barriers outside with banners and kind of and shout things at women as they're going in. As a humanist, I personally would believe that a woman has a right to choose to make her own choices about what happens with her body, and therefore we're campaigning to stop that kind of, you know, protests and putting barriers up that women have to go through like that, because we think it's wrong that people should inflict their beliefs. It's not wrong that people have those beliefs. I can completely understand why some people would not agree with abortion, for example. I really can. However, don't inflict those views onto other people, and onto women when they're in that situation and trying to make those difficult choices. So, you know, if a woman has sought advice, she's thought through about the consequences of her actions, and she's decided that that is the route that she wants to take, and it's a legal route, she's allowed to do that in this country, then she should be allowed to do that without somebody making that situation really unpleasant and uncomfortable by trying to inflict their beliefs onto her and, you know, trying to force her to think like them. So yeah.
Oh, thank you. I think that's a very well, I think that's a controversial topic, but you know, this is Crazy Talks with Wise People. Okay, so what about what if your philosophy, or what do you call it, like something you believe in, conflicts with the law of the land?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I think we're kind of, I'm certainly lucky in that I'm been brought up in Britain, where generally I think the laws we have are reasonable and are there for a reason. And so I've not felt strongly that I want to break a law as such. So I'm quite lucky in that kind of way. But, you know, again, I do think that if there's something that you fundamentally believe is unfair or unjust, or wrong, then you should be allowed to be able to maybe kind of have your say, but it depends how you do that and for what reasons. You know, as I say, it's a tricky one. Yeah. I'm not advocating that people go around breaking the law.
You're right. You're right.
Yeah. And, you know, it sounds conflicting because I'm saying there about when, you know, I believe that maybe people should be allowed to protest in a certain way, in a peaceful kind of manner. people breaking the law, protesting for climate change sometimes, the things that they've done.
You're right.
And you might say, well, I was just saying that I don't believe that people should protest outside an abortion clinic, you know? But I think that's about people inflicting one particular belief onto others about one situation. When you think about something like climate change, it's kind of maybe about, it's not so much about a belief, it's perhaps about the reality of what's happening and trying to raise awareness of that. And it's for the greater good of humanity in the long run. So yeah, it's kind of tricky. Nothing's easy, is it? Every situation has its own kind of sort of things you need to think about. Yeah.
Okay. Those are very wise words. Those are very wise words, and I really like to thank you. What are some parting words you'd like to tell our audience? Or
I just think really think about being authentic. I think be true to yourself. Try to be, you know, kind of the person that you want to be, rather than what you think somebody else wants you to be. And try to live your best life, you know, enjoy life. As I say, we only get one. Make the most of it.
I'm parting words. Oh my gosh. I'm just going to record the parting words.
So remember, you'll have to press end to save what we've done, I think.
Saved already. That was a very good interview. It's not responding.
Phone was just ringing. Let me check. The word on the towel. Why there's the word? I don't know where the word on the towel is. Excuse me a moment.
It's okay. Oh, I'm so sorry. Meeting is not responding. Close the program. Wait for to respond. Oh, it's the internet connection.
Oh, hi. You've just rung me. My name's Sarah Wilkinson. I'm not sure why.
Oh, Sarah, I literally typing you an email as we speak.
Ah, I'm fine, thank you.
Good, good. I just saw your message when I came in the office this morning. You booked the ferry in yesterday, is that correct?
Yes.
I was just wondering if it would be possible for us to move you up to our sister hotel, the Royal, which is only about a 2 minutes walk away from the ferry.
Yeah, that's no bother. We just, as long as we're in Stromness and not too far from the ferry, because we're getting the ferry the next day. But yeah, I mean, we only need a double room as well, because the only one available at the ferry was a family room, I think. So
Okay, so what happened is that the owner was blocking it out the other day, but it always takes a little bit of time between us blocking it and the third parties
right, okay,
locking it off.
yeah.
So that's fine. We can put you in a large double at the room. They are literally 2 minutes walk apart. Like you can see one from the front to the other, and they're both very close to the ferry terminal, so that's no issue.
Okay, that's fine. Will it be the same price? We were actually paying a bit over the odds because we could only get a family room at the ferry inn. So if you've got anything that's less less price at the Royal, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. What we can do is because it's through the third party.
Do you want? I mean, I could cancel the booking.com one because it's free cancellation anyway to worry. So I could cancel that and make a booking direct with you if you wanted to do that instead. Or
Absolutely. If you've got a couple of minutes now, I could put it straight in now for you, and then you can cancel the booking.com one.
okay, go ahead.
If that works, okay. So it's Friday the 8th for one night, that's
Yeah,
correct?
yeah.
Okay, wonderful.
Oh, gosh. Well, that's actually just the parting words. So we can record the parting words tomorrow. Shall we? All right. Let's have one more sip. Sarah, I'm so sorry.
I haven't actually got my purse with me because I'm just outside the house at the moment. So I haven't got my debit card. Do you? Is that?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
One thing I will get off you because it's just a generated email. If you can give me an email
Yeah.
address, that would be great.
Yeah, it's Sarah Wilkinson 31. So it's SARAH WILK INSON, and then no gaps or anything, but the number 31, so 31 at yahoo.co.uk. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. That's all I need for now.
Okay.
Don't worry about it. I mean, normally the book continues to put a card in, but
Yeah.
I'll just put a note on it.
Okay.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I'll move you over. In a few minutes, you should get an email and it'll just have a confirmation of that. So if you cancel the booking on your end,
Yeah.
And then just check over that one works. And then actually it'll be £20 less, so it'll be £140.
Cool.
For breakfast.
That's lovely. Thank you. Okay.
Wonderful.
All right.
We'll see you on Friday.
Yeah. Thanks very much. Bye.
Okay, cheers. Bye.
This will be
Sorry.
preserved. I will just wait until the internet comes up. Our internet bandwidth, I don't know what call that bandwidth.
Oh yeah.
It's
it
very
drops off
slow now.
sometimes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not responding, but it is already saved, I'm sure. So once the internet comes up, I'm just going to end this. So, well, actually, it's already everything. Maybe we can record the parting words for tomorrow,
Yeah.
if you have got time. But if you've got not, maybe.
We can either do it now or we can do it tomorrow.
Okay.
It's up to you. Maybe.
The internet is on the one level.
Oh.
You see,
Mhm.
only one. So
I'm going over to Orkney on Friday. It's
maybe the angels would like us to meet again because I really fell in love with you.
Oh, Angela, so sweet. Oh.
No, it's true. It's
Yeah.
true. It must be the humanism or something, or it's normal. Or you were brought up that way, like.
I don't know really. I think, yeah, my mum and dad are both really nice people, and kind of my dad very much lives his own life and likes people and likes, that sort of idea of he doesn't really judge people. He just likes to have a nice time and enjoy himself and loves chatting to people. And yeah, my mum's generally a friendly person. She's kind of she's a bit shyer, but yeah, no, I think
You see the difference? I was a little bit, I mean, the communication doesn't really flow fluently for me
mhm.
when facing the camera. So
I don't know. I think you do.
I'm still trying to get acquainted with this medium,
Yeah,
but thank you so much. You're so
it's good.
good.
I enjoyed that. I enjoyed it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because you have a star quality.
I don't know about that. I
No.
always think I look a bit, because I never know whether to look at the camera or look at the screen or look at, so kind of, but yeah, it's.
Well, this is it, because we are cell phone journalists, so we really don't have technicalities. We only
Yeah.
wanted to contribute to. Oh, thank you. I will end this now.
Gosh, I hope it saved it. It'll be annoying if it's not saved all that. Oh my goodness.
No, it's saved. There you go again.
Ugh.
The internet here can chip off a bit, right?
Yeah, sometimes it happens in our house, especially if there's lots of people using lots of different things in the house, so
You
they.
see, it's end. I just clicked end and it's
Yeah.
not
Oh.
responding.
Oh, for goodness sake.
I was brought up differently because my grandmother, the Hispanic old people,
Okay.
they always tell us to choose our friends, and every time we've got friends around, she'd always like judge.
Right, yeah.
You know, whose child is that? What's her background? And
Right,
she would
okay.
investigate, and that's
Yeah.
what I think that's what made me different from
Mhm.
you. And well, I'm trying to change that.
I've been quite independent, I think, as well. Like I moved out of home when I was 16 and kind of yeah, so I've always been quite an independent sort of person, done my own thing, you know, and kind of yeah.
I think living in the West, you really don't have this. You don't have social stratification, right? Like everyone is equal.
You do a little bit, especially
Mm.
economically and in terms of opportunities. We've still got that sort of class system, you know, so you've got the
Really?
richer people who maybe have better
Really?
opportunities and yeah, kind of